Good afternoon, everybody. For those that are watching at home, my name is Patrick Robbins. I'm the Manager of Legislative Services and the Corporate Officer. And just before we get into proceedings, I'm going to call upon our CAO to provide us with the land acknowledgement.
Thank you for the privilege of offering today's land acknowledgement for this very important meeting today. So we would like to recognize and acknowledge that we are on unceded traditional territories of the Cowichan, Malahat, Subasat, Halalt, Penalakat, Stamanis, Layaxan, Pocatchin, Dididat, and Pachidat nations, whose people have walked gently here for thousands of years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to call to order the regular session of the board of Wednesday, November 8th, 2023. It is also my pleasure and privilege to lead you through the election of chair and vice chair of the regional district. What I'd like to do at the outset is just refer to the memorandum that was circulated with the agenda and highlight a number of the procedures that we're going to be following. We're following, of course, procedures within the Local Government Act and, of course, the procedure bylaw of the CVRD. And so if I'm reading verbatim to my memo, my apologies, but it's important that we all understand the rules of engagement, if you will. So with that, I'm going to call for nominations for chair. And at the close of nomination, if there is only, of course, one nomination for the chair, then that chair shall be acclaimed. If two or more candidates have been nominated, those candidates will have an opportunity to address the board. If that opportunity comes up, then there will be an allotted maximum time of 30 minutes for questions for the candidates from the directors. Each director will be allowed to ask one question of one or all of the candidates. If all directors have been heard and there is still time remaining in that 30 minutes, directors who have already spoken can ask a follow-up question. And then following the question period, I'll conduct a vote by using paper ballots. Our electronic tabulator is no longer with us. It's met its match. And then at the end of the ballots casting, then I will announce the vote totals for each candidate after all the directors have voted. If only two candidates ran in the election, the candidate receiving 9, that is 9 votes, and thereby constituting a majority of the board, would be declared elected. If 3 or more candidates ran in the election and no candidate received a majority of votes, the name of the candidate receiving the lowest number of votes will be removed from the election. If there are candidates tied for the lowest number of votes, I will place those names on a ballot, place them in a bag that I have here, and I will draw out one name, and that name will be removed from the next round of voting. The remaining candidates will again stand for election. This process will be repeated until a candidate is elected or until only 2 candidates remained and the vote is tied. In the event of a tie vote, the names of the candidates will be written on separate pieces of paper and placed in the container that I have, and I will draw one of those pieces of paper, and the candidate whose name is withdrawn will be declared elected. An election of vice chair shall be conducted following the same process that I just described. And again, if there's only one nomination for vice chair, then that vice chair shall be acclaimed. And again, please note that we're not using, obviously, the electronic tabulators. We're using paper ballots, and staff are here, and we'll try and turn around. If there is to be an election, we'll turn around and we'll get those printed and distributed for each of you to vote in a secret ballot. With that, I'd like a call for nominations for chair of the Cowichan Valley Regional District.
I would like to nominate Director Stone.
Director Stone, do you accept the nomination?
I do, thank you.
Are there additional nominations? Director Wilson?
Thank you, Patrick. I would like to nominate Director Martman.
Director Martman, do you accept that nomination?
I do.
Thank you. Director Istash?
I'd like to nominate Director Nicholson.
Director Nicholson, do you accept that nomination?
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I'd like to nominate Director Toporowski.
Director Toporowski, do you accept the nomination?
I do, thank you.
Do I have any other nominations? I have nominated, and they have accepted, Director Stone, Director Martman, Director Nicholson, Director Toporowski. Are there any other further nominations for Chair of the Cowichan Valley Regional District? With that, I will close nominations, and just in the order that they were nominated, in no particular order, I will turn to each of the nominated directors if they wish to address the board at this time. Director Stone.
Yes, thank you. Are we doing it from here or the lectern?
However
fine.
you choose.
It's better on video if I sit in my chair, because when you stand up there.
Perfect. Thank you.
First of all, I just want to thank the board for the year that we've had. I've served as chair 3 of the last 4 years, and this was by far the most pleasant and productive opportunity that I think I've had in the chair's role. I'd also like to thank our senior staff, our CAO, and the entire staff team at the CVRD. I think one of the projects we embarked on in this term was to build a culture not only of cooperation and partnership amongst not only our board but our staff team, and we've had a lot of success on that journey this year. We still have more work to do, and we're always looking to improve in that pursuit of excellence, but I feel that we've done a really good job. I also want to thank all of the directors around this table, and in particular the new directors. I don't think that it's a coincidence that with some of the changes around the board table that we've really come to a place where we may not always agree on the substance of our arguments or positions, but the way that we relate to each other is largely really positive and really productive. And I think the debate is strong, but the connectivity and the relationships that we've developed as human beings sometimes help us to sort of bridge the gap between the distances we may have in our perspectives. Throughout this year, we've faced a lot of challenges. I came forward last year and I spoke about things that I thought were a priority, working with First Nations more closely, working on the culture of the organization. And I think we've been successful on those fronts, but I also talked about things like succession planning and skill development. And to be frank, I don't think we achieved the outcomes I would have liked to have seen on those fronts in this last year. There can be reasons for that, or you could call them excuses, but I would also say that we faced a number of unanticipated challenges, definitely not like COVID in my first time as chair or the floods and fires that we faced in the first 2 years that I was chair of the regional district, but challenges nonetheless. But through those challenges, I think that we persevered. We minimized the challenge in the communities that those issues came forward in, and we used those opportunities to develop stronger and deeper relationships, not only between ourselves and our staff, but the communities where those challenges surfaced. I don't take credit for all those things. I think that on reflection, I look and I think it's a real cooperative dynamic between not only our team around this table, but the senior staff team and the whole organization coming together to look at solutions and ways to move forward and in a good way. I think that in a good way is the way that I'd like to look at us continuing to move forward together. I'd hoped we'd come to this meeting today with an adopted strategic plan, and I know there's still some key issues we need to iron out, but I think that as far as an objective goes, getting that sort of done and dusted, if you will, to provide focus to us around this table and to the organization is of paramount importance as we head into the next year. I also think that skill development piece and work with the governance committee needs to become more focused. And myself as a leader, I need to develop the capacity and the ability to delegate and work with people better to help lift up their skill sets and not sort of be a control freak. Not to take things on because it seems easier in the moment to take those things on than to share the load with other people. The reality that we face is very different than when I first started in local government. It's only been 9 years, but the landscape that we work within and the challenges we face are much more extreme and very different than they were 9 years ago. And because of that, I think it's really important that the roles of vice chair and committee chairs be elevated, and that those elevations of those important roles be recognized. That leadership team that gets developed shares the load more with the regional district chair, and that we really work in developing skills, cooperation, and partnership on achieving the outcomes and objectives that we all agree to. I believe the role of chair is to be a reflection of the board's will. I have my own ideologies and ideas, but I will never prescribe those to the board. I've heard feedback from some that say that it's not sure sometimes where I stand. I think I do try to communicate my perspectives and position on issues, but I also recognize the role of chair as a facilitator and a reflection of the board's will, not to try and implement my own perspectives on the board. Of course, I have a position of influence, both in the community and around this table and within the organization, and I use that as effectively as I can, and that speaks to relationship development. Over the last 9 years, I've worked extremely hard to develop relationships, not only with our colleagues, not only in the greater community, but with senior governments. I think I've been very effective of that, and that gives me a direct line, if you will, to many of the most important, influential people that we work with at senior levels of government. I think I flex those really hard for the Cowichan Valley, not only my own community in Ladysmith, but here. I thank people like Mayor Douglas for including me in important meetings that help not only further North Cowichan's goals, but the goals of the entire region. I think our work with First Nations is gaining momentum, and that's not just because of all the people around this table and the leadership within the First Nations in the region, but also our senior staff members who have that same alignment of head and heart in that effort that I think all of us around this table have. So in closing, I just say that none of us would run for election for chair if we didn't think we were the best alternative or option to chair and to lead the organization for the next year. And I have the utmost respect for the other three candidates, but I'm here because I do believe that I'm still the best candidate for chair for the coming year. I know that for me, I need to be clear that I'm not running for MLA. I know that that's been a conversation that's out there. I've made that decision. I never close a door fully on any opportunity in life because that would just be foolish, but the door is pretty tightly closed on that. I see myself in sunset of my political career. I think this will be my last term in government. I'm looking toward the private sector for my future, just for my own peace and the peace and security of my life. 12 years in local government out of hopefully what will be a long life, but I'm thinking 80 might be lucky. 15% of somebody's life in dedication and service to community is a long time, and I'm looking at taking care of myself and my own goals and future aspirations as I lead into the end of the next phase of my life. So I do ask for your support as chair. I hope to be a more collaborative, open, and connected leader in all of our communities and with all of you. And I hope that you'll help me establish the leadership team that we need so that when people like myself and others around this table decide that it's time to move on, that the people that remain at this table can pick up the mantle and carry it forward and make the organization and the communities that we all serve proud. So thank you, and I hope to get your support.
Thank you, Director Stone. Director Martman? We don't have a prescribed time.
Good thing. Oh, where to begin? Aaron put things so well, and I really applaud that. I also want to recognize that the last year has been a really progressive year in my mind, and I'd like to thank Aaron and thank Ellison for that work they've done, and we've come a long way. You know, think a year ago where we were. I was standing up here talking about a story of corn. Don't know if you remember that. And also new directors coming in, a new CAO coming in. And I think that it's been a lot of work, as Aaron mentioned. It's been a lot of work over the last year. And we should be proud. I think it's something the organization should be proud of too. So here, I'm a bit nervous because the next portion is really important to me. And I hope I do my teachers justice. Siyam na Sokwin, Siamna, Seyaya, Siamna, Sequalaqua. Antapa Hatlo, Ben Martman Tana, Shinikawa, Nuswish. Tunusanak, Yellow Point, Kamwalklak, Norway. I say these words of Halkaminum with gratitude to my teachers and to the elder that said I should stand up here and acknowledge them, acknowledge their work, their teachings, and also be proud that they gave me a name. So I am reaching out to say thank you and sharing that with you for the first time. So who am I? Like, who's this guy that just stood up here and said a few words that he somehow got in his head? And I think the piece that I want to let you know is that I think, as Jesse put into his recent Take 5, a trusted farmer or a farmer by trade, and that's maybe who I am today, but it's not who I have been in the past. I started out very young in the commercial fishing, also went into logging, paid my way through university, got through my university degree and decided that, tried teaching in a high school, grade 9, decided that paramedicine was a lot less stressful. And so went through a whole career in paramedicine, advancing as high as you can go in the training, dealing with all kinds of things as you might imagine. But in doing that, moved into education, teaching of programs, running of programs, starting up of campuses, moving from there into being a superintendent, running all the ambulance stations for the CVRD area, but if you added in Tofino and Ucluelet and a few other areas. So knowing the area fairly well. And also working again with First Nations. And that's where I had a real opportunity to work with Penelakut. And created some good relationships then and some honors that they gave me. I think also moving on beyond that was I got into the licensing and regulatory world of the province and moved on into a federal area where I was responsible for creating a national organization. And we worked on creating relationships between provinces from BC all the way through to Newfoundland and trying to get everybody to agree to a single vision. And I think that that's where a lot of my learning has come through about what is important about getting people to work together. Along the way, I got 3 years as a certified general accountant and also did my MBA. So that's a little bit about me, because if you're going to trust somebody to be a chair, I think you need to know a little bit about their background. But I think the other piece is, why did I run? So a couple of people asked me, are you interested? And I went, yes. And I surprised myself, and I think I surprised a couple of people around the table too, because it came out of sort of nowhere. But sometimes these things that you say come out of nowhere. You take a walk, and all of a sudden you look at the mirror and you go like, oh, I am here. And I think this is the right time for me to step up and say, yeah, I'm interested and I want to run. I think I have something to offer, and something, and a lot of it is around, as Ian would say, is service. How can you best serve? I have the time. I've made that commitment that this would be my priority. But in doing so, I went like, well, what do I know about this role? What should I do? And so, as you probably know, I like to do my homework. And for me, details matter. So I reached out and I spoke with most of you, if not all, and to some extent. And I had to listen to what you had to say. And some of the things that you shared, and hopefully this is meaningful to all of you around the board, and in no particular order, South Cowichan needs support. Succession continuity is important. Regional planning. The Watershed Board. First Nations. The environment. The electoral areas are important. And I think what I heard that sort of resounded for me to say, yeah, you should continue thinking about this role and continuing forward, is that, we want to have a balanced approach from a chair. the chair that is representing all of us, not just one area or themselves or conflicting perhaps issues. Inclusivity, having principles and having no particular agenda, I think, is coming back as well. And I think all of these things sort of reflect, for me, that the role of the chair is not about the chair at all. It's actually about you. And it's about what you want. And so how does that happen if the chair is not there listening to you? And so that's one of the commitments I would make to this, is that I so enjoyed that last month of reaching out to people and talking, that is something that I see as most important. What are your issues? What is it that you need to bring forward and get your voice heard? And how can the chair give you access or provide ways for you to access the people and the information you need, and provide a process that's going to let you get, so hopefully, to an outcome that you want. Outcomes aren't guaranteed by any means. Chairs don't have that happen. You make that happen. But I think having a process that will get you there is so, so important, and what I've heard. I'm not big on promises, but I do believe being prepared is important. Details matter, patience with yourself and with others. I think listening is probably one of the critical items. And sometimes that means when you listen, you actually ask who's doing the talking, and is there space for other people to talk? Inclusivity, a safe environment. Can you actually pick up the phone and go like, oh, I'm going to get my head bitten off, I don't feel comfortable, I'm not sure I want to talk to this person, or I'm not sure I can broach this topic. I think that's something a chair needs to be, that open conduit for you. And I think in the end, what you see is what you get. That's one of my principles, is I'm open. I guess, as one person said, if you can't trust a farmer, who can you trust? So, to wrap up, I think there's a big picture I would wrap up with. You know, we're here to serve the public. We're here to serve the organization, and I'm here to serve you. So to end up where I started, thank you to Aaron, thank you to Ellison, thank you to the CAO for last year and the leadership of their time, their energy, and their passion. And to my teachers, Hajka.
Thank you, Director Martman. Director Nicholson.
Okay, well positioned. Thank you so much, Chris, for nominating me. And thanks so much to the others who are running, because choice is good. And I'll start by acknowledging that our work encompasses the traditional territories of 10 First Nations. And so we must work hard to build strong relationships with them and to bring their knowledge and wisdom to our decision making. I feel really privileged that you're considering me for board chair. And so let me describe what I think is important for the board at this time. When I look back over the past year, I'm satisfied, just like Aaron and Ben have described, I'm very satisfied that the board has functioned well. You know, the directors have built collaborative working relationships, I think. And we've reset our course to tackle many of the challenges that we're trying to deal with. So why would I rock the boat? Really, it's because I'm big on learning and continuous improvement. And so I want to make perfectly clear, I am not seeking your support because I think I will do a better job than Aaron has or that Ben would do. I'm seeking the job because I will do a different job. I'll do a different job than what we've had for the last few years. And I think bringing a different point of view and approach to the work of chair, in my experience, would help, because people and organizations learn best when they're exposed to new ideas, different perspectives and ways of being. And I think a change right now will help us be a better board. And so what would my focus be? Well, I went back and I reviewed the speeches and questions from last year's board election, just to make myself feel really nervous. And I was struck, though, by the interest in and discussion around the notion of collaborating, working together. And we even raised the possibility of having a co-chair. So that would be a model that would require collaboration. Unfortunately, we didn't get to that topic on the governance committee agenda. And I regret that, and I think it needs to happen. But in the meantime, honestly, there is nothing preventing us from becoming building up together a truly collaborative board. And teamwork happens when you share information, when opportunities to learn and develop and be involved are shared, and when you have sort of a culture of positive and constructive feedback. So that would be something I would focus on. I'm also concerned that the board has a succession challenge, and that's been mentioned. So we rely on a few experienced directors, and they will move on at some point, we've heard. I feel a board grows stronger when it supports each individual at the table to develop and contribute their unique set of experiences, skills, and strengths. So my approach would be to try to encourage the development of the full breadth of the board talent, so we can do the best for the region. So I'd focus on collaboration, and I'd focus on an inclusive approach. But what else? When I think about, I think sort of compartmentalize the job into three sections. So chairing the meetings, communications, and guiding the organization towards the goals that we've set. And so when I think about sharing the meetings, of course, my goal always is to make sure everyone feels understood and respected. And also that you're running an efficient and effective meeting. And I have to say thank you so much for being appointed to the Electoral Area Services Committee Chair this past year. It's the first time in my 8 years previously that I've had an opportunity to chair a substantive committee. And I had help. I had help from Director Wilson, who was the vice chair. I had help from all the directors around the table, staff, particularly legislative services staff. And it was a steep learning curve. I think I improved over time and gained confidence. But most importantly, I think I did demonstrate that I can hold a respectful and welcoming space, that I focus on the issue at hand, and that I'm able to practice patience and common sense. So the other thing about sharing that I think is really important is encouraging participation in discussion to try and get towards consensus, because consensus-based decisions, particularly as far as policy goes, are going to be much stronger decisions. So, and we should do more of that consensus stuff. And then when you think about meetings, as Ben articulated, preparation, doing your homework is really important, and feedback. Debriefing a meeting. I really learn when I get feedback, and I really appreciate it, and I do like to do my homework. I wouldn't come to a meeting if I didn't feel I was prepared. I hope we can institute some sort of a regular schedule of more opportunities for feedback. If I was elected chair, I would focus on that. So let's look at communications. I'm going to try not to go on too long, but I have thought about this a lot. So when I think about communications, it's a huge part of the role. It's a huge part of all of our roles. But it's about really connecting with directors, staff, and the community. And people need to feel heard and respected. I'd work closely with the vice chair. I'd focus on regular check-ins with each individual director, regular check-ins. And I'd be available when you needed me, and I would keep that flow of information going. Those would be really important priorities for me. I'd also focus on working closely with the vice chair to support the staff, our staff person, who then has to do everything else. Let me turn to the community, though. This is a really important area that I've been thinking about. We all know that we've been taught the chair as a spokesperson for the CVRD. So understanding and conveying key messages and supporting the technical experts in the field is an important part of the job, no question. But communicating with the community is much bigger than the formal communications. And I am convinced that to earn the respect and trust of the community, the whole organization needs to embrace a welcoming culture of service. And of course, it starts with the chair and board. And so we're the face of the organization, so let's be responsive, proactive, friendly. Let's go above and beyond with the community. And I'm also concerned, as far as the community goes, that we're experiencing rapid changes with our development and with the environment. And some of it is very, very disturbing. And I think many people who are just trying to make ends meet, get on with their lives, their response is to double down on the status quo. The thing is, the way things have been are not how things are going to be in the future. They're not how they are now, and they're not going to go back to the old. So we need to support people to better make that shift and adapt. So I think communications is part of the key to that. We need to spend a lot more, and we need to invest a lot more in listening and sharing information and discussing on sort of an ongoing, creating a dialogue about strategies and plans for adapting. I think that's important. It's a huge challenge, though. Finally, the function of the chair is to guide the organization to reach its goals. And, you know, we've spent quite a bit of time sketching out our strategic priorities. And so now we have to make sure we make the most possible progress in the next 3 years. And I think we've all agreed that reconciliation and climate change are defining the future. And big issues need regional thinking. So whether it's emergency planning or growth management or food security or the South End Incorporation, all those types of things mean we must come together and work across our jurisdictional boundaries to address the challenges. Like we just have to do that, and it is urgent. As chair, I'd focus on making space for discussion to better understand how we can remove the barriers to better supporting one another and working together. I think that's really important. And finally, the other area I think that I think that we should pay attention to is advocacy. So you all know that we often lack the tools and resources in the regional district to address some of the challenges we have. And a lot of that often has to do with provincial and federal regulations and funding constraints. So on these matters, the board needs to act as an advocate for getting our needs met. I mean, that's the strategy we have at hand. Advocating to senior governments, though, is a long game. And you need a systematic and coordinated approach, one that's well-researched, well-planned, involves the whole board as well as the partners that are affected in other jurisdictions. So my husband, Roger, many years ago, worked for the Ministry of Finance. And we were having a conversation about advocacy the other night, and he said, you know, I remember the Fraser Valley Regional District, how impressed I was and many of my colleagues were, because at that time, that regional district really had it together as far as the advocacy goes. They had done so much preparation. They really knew what they wanted. They really honed in on the province's priorities, and they had savvy. They just, and they got what they wanted often. And, you know, I think we have had quite a lot of success recently on advocating about some of the big issues that are coming down at us and how we can't really cope with what we have. I think so there's an opportunity to spend more time preparing and planning an advocacy campaign for each issue that will be effective. And so in a nutshell, sorry I took so long, it's how I would approach the chair's work. I'd love your support so we could work together and get it done, make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Nicholson. Director Toporowski.
Oh, gotta adjust this, there we go. I have notes here, so just bear with me until I find them. And where are we? I just don't want to mess this up. Ben Martman's at a with the traditional welcoming. So, Asiamsiaya Haitsepka Kwanasi Matal. All respected friends and relatives, thank you for being with us today. Kwomosne Kwiltistanot, Kwanitumsne Deborah Toporowski. My traditional name is Kwiltistanot, and my English name is Deborah Toporowski. My grandparents are late Stephen Jack and late Rosie Peter from Quamachin. Rosie Peter is the daughter of Johnny Billy. My mother is late Ethel Jack, and my father is Howard Wong. I'd like to start off by thanking my nominator for nominating me today. This is the third time I've been nominated, and this is the first time I've accepted. So I just am very thankful and grateful to be able to address the board today, for you to think about the board chair today. And also thinking about our elders and our teachings, as someone had spoke earlier. No one around this table is greater than the other. We've all been elected to the seat, and we are to be here. This is our journey, but no one's greater than the other. So looking around the table, I've been here, this is my second term on North Cowichan, and appointed to the table of CVRD. I'm a good listener, and I will bring out the best in people. This is just a great opportunity for me to share who I am, the work that has been already started. I'm happy to continue in that work. And again, thank you to Aaron and Allison. Whatever happens today is whatever happens today. My experience, I heard from people about my experience. I was on Cowichan Tribes Council for 8 years, and at that time I was chair of the fishing committee along with Larry George. So most of the time he was busy or he was away, and I chaired that. I was the First Nations Reconciliation Chair for North Cowichan and Deputy Acting Mayor for 8 months. I chaired the Committee of the Whole. And, you know, we're in challenging times, you know, and talking about UNDRIP and how that's going to look for local governments rolling out for everyone. What is that going to mean, not only to us, but to our community? The history of, you know, First Nations, as I said, weren't welcomed in these spaces and places, even to sit at these tables. So I feel very thankful and humbled to be able to address you today. And it's just about the opportunity today. If you think I cannot, you know, face the challenge of being the chair today, I'm happy with that. The last year, I did address the board to say that I was going to accept this time if I was nominated. I ran for chief last time. I didn't make it. So that wasn't my journey for that time. Like I said, I'm a good listener, and I've heard from people around the table who may think that I'm not ready. I'm a fast learner, so whatever I don't know, I'm welcome to learn. And if I do become the chair, I look forward to speaking to each one of you, meeting you where you're at, and going from there. I won't promise you anything other than to listen and try to do the best in the outcomes of where this direction of this board will go. We have regional growth, strategy planning, all of those things coming forward. And these are very important. And whatever directions that we take is going to affect everyone. So I just want to say, I'm going to keep it short and sweet. Heitsapka, CM. Thank you, respected ones.
Thank you, Director Toporowski. I neglected to mention that you're voting for the chair and vice chair of not only the Cowichan Valley Regional District, you're voting for the chair, vice chair. They're one and the same with the Cowichan Valley Regional Hospital District. I don't know if that means any difference to the nominators or the nominees. It shouldn't. I'm going to set the clock. To 30 minutes. And what I would really, and I'm sure that everybody would appreciate, you're going to be given an opportunity to ask a question of one of the nominees or a question to all the nominees. Please make your questions succinct. And I would ask that the directors to which the question is directed at, they also are succinct in their answers because we have a big table and everybody's going to be given the opportunity to, as I say, ask a question of one of the nominated directors or pose the question to all the nominated directors. And so I'm going to start on my left and I'm going to work my way around the table. And so I start to my very left. Director Morrison, do you have a question for
I do,
one or
for all of them. We're in a housing crisis. So on the basis of today, if you're elected chair, what will you continue to do and do moving forward to help house the people in our community that can't afford a house, the working poor? What will you do to help us to get more housing built in the region?
And I'm going to go to the directors in opposite direction with which they provided some opening remarks. So I'm going to go to Director Toporowski.
Thank you. If I'm elected board chair, I will advocate to the governments that be in getting some funding. And, there are initiatives that are on the ground that are collecting data about housing and building on that. And, governments love data. So, providing that and asking for those supports where we can build those affordable housing units. Cowichan Tribes had applied for the Rapid Housing Initiative, and they received that through their funding and built apartment buildings. So, something like that may be a good initiative as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Director Nicholson.
Thank you. I will freely admit that I'm not the most knowledgeable person about housing issues, but I think this is one area where we all need to pull together. I know it's a little bit different for electoral areas than it is for municipalities, but I think this is a good example of when I talk about needing to develop an advocacy approach that is much more coordinated and people are really working together and understand the issues so that we can take advantage of opportunities that come along and that we could really go after things in a very meaningful way. I mean, we have set up a lot of things over the last few years with the affordable housing function and, and so and we've got new legislation. I'm trusting that that kind of thing that is moving will continue to move forward, but I think we as a board need to understand how we can better affect our role as advocates on this particular front. Thank you.
Director Martin?
Thank you, and thank you for the question, Ian. I would go more along the line, what I'm hearing is absolutely on, but for me, I tend to want to pull back and say, where is the board putting it into the strategic plan? What are we seeing as being important, and how are we going to best move that in a way that addresses, I think, the urgency? And I think it came up with this board today about, the principle behind, are our decisions making, are they going to be making a difference? So the MRDT, for example, and putting that portion of that towards affordable housing, those are the kind of things that I think I would see as the board putting that, answering the question for you in a way, because I look at it from a perspective of, from the province, what they're doing right now in the last couple of weeks is putting forward a lot of legislation that can impact us. How it will impact us across the CVRD versus municipalities will be different. But how do we take that information and operationalize it to make a difference for those people that are in need of housing? Because I think there's an opportunity there that we need to really work on. I think, building on the advocacy, I think you have to be a voice for this. Yeah, I'm in every way, from the decisions you make at the board level around MRDT, showing that your principles are there, but also saying to the people that in senior government or provincial government, just saying, hey, we've got something to do. We have something very important to say on this topic. Lastly, I also don't think regional districts should be in isolation around this, and I think this is where the UBCM plays a role, and that you really have to leverage your voice with the other voices of regional districts. So over to Aaron, who will have, I'm sure, a very comprehensive, because he's had time.
You said 30 minutes?
In total.
Oh.
Director Stone?
Well, I think what I've heard from the other three candidates is obviously all valid and important points to make. Of course, we need to align ourselves with federal and provincial funding programs and opportunities. I think we all know, those of us who invested in trying to do the heavy lifting around affordable housing, how some of the hoops we've had to jump through over the last number of years are not conducive to the rapid housing development that we need. However, we've all persevered in different ways, and now we're starting to gain momentum. So we need to make sure that we're in alignment with the provincial and federal programs that are available, and also the legislation that's forthcoming. Details are still not solid. There's a lot of regulation to come, but we need to make sure that we're in alignment with those. But making sure that in that alignment that we're strengthening the value of the OCPs that are being worked on right now in the regional district and also recently adopted in the municipalities, that the development that comes is truly sustainable and serves both our climate and our housing goals, as well as remains affordable for those who need it. That might mean more suites in Area G. That might mean more high density or higher density housing in the core and in our village centers and community centers. But we need to continue to support those processes, and we do need to not only advocate to senior government, but be able to give a little bit of elbows up pushback when their priorities may conflict with those where we want to preserve our urban and rural mix within the region. We need to protect our farms. We talk about things like food security. We need to make sure that our transportation systems are in alignment. So at the high level, the provincial and federal regulations and programs seem to fit with our objectives. However, we have to make sure that we continue to raise our voices in that advocacy and flex the relationships that we've developed. There's some new programs that are coming from the province that we can't talk about, but I've been intimately involved with the BC Builds discussions through the Premier's office and the Housing Ministry. We need to continue to get the intel that we can on those, so when those programs are available and announced, we can hit the ground running and build the housing that we all need. Municipalities are going to play a larger role, but that's not the answer to everything. The OCP work within the electoral areas is really important, and it'll help us maintain that rural and urban separation and protect the rural areas that we want to protect, while also making sure that the housing is available and affordable for all those who want to live here, and especially those who live, work, and play here today. Thanks.
Thank you to the directors. I move to Director Stash. Do you have a question for a director or are the directors?
I have a question for one director. I have a question for Director Stone. When I look at the 4 nominees in front of us, there is one difference between them all, and is that Director Stone, you as a mayor, have a lot of demands on your time and also your focus. So my question is, how do you feel your capacity stands in comparison to a director filling the role as chair?
I don't have as much time as everyone else. That's the way it is. I have a really strong council who I rely on. I appoint deputy mayors, and my council members take a lot of the responsibilities and roles of mayor. That's part of my discussion around succession planning. It's not just within this organization, but it's at my municipal table as well. And they're in the same knowledge sharing that I'm not going to run again. And I want to make sure that there's at least 2 or 3 potential candidates to replace me as mayor that will continue what I think has been building a legacy from my predecessor of 21 years, Mayor Hutchins, through myself, and hopefully on into the future around progressivism, sustainability, and community success. That said, I put more time into the role of chair in the last year than I have in my other elected roles or appointed roles. I also serve as chair of the Island Coastal Economic Trust, was co-chair of the Island Corridor Foundation, and participate in a lot of other things, as well as having a small business and a family. So that's a fair comment. I'd also say that I'm extremely motivated and activated, especially in the last number of months, around my priorities for myself. My priority in the immediate term for me, and the focus that I've provided, is the Cowichan Valley Regional District and the town of Ladysmith. And when I'm driven to achieve goals that are aligned with my personal goals, it can be a really powerful force for me. I go home at night, I open my laptop, I look through what I think are the priorities of the day, and I make sure that I get those things done. That said, that's a challenge that we all have to face. Sometimes when you have a limited amount of time, you need to be able to rely more on your colleagues. And that's a criticism that I'd heard, not just because of the busy life that I lead, but because of my personality, that I want to focus on that in terms of my own leadership and skill development. So that's a personal focus for the next year that I think aligns well with the realities that we live in today, the different roles that I serve, and will allow me to be the most effective chair for the year ahead. Thanks.
Director McClinton. And just to, by the way, you don't have to ask a question if you don't have a question. No, we won't, but we'll get there. Director Abbott.
A quick one for all the candidates. I think we've heard a common denominator that communication is important. How will you effectively communicate with your colleagues around the table before the busyness, in your busy days, but also the busy day of a regular board meeting, a day like today? How do you fit? What are some of the creative ideas how you're going to communicate with your colleagues?
I'll ask to start with Director Nicholson.
I think that really depends on each director. It would be first important to understand what works for you. I find, just asking people if they have time to chat on text usually gets a fairly quick response, and you can usually connect pretty quickly. And so I think that would be my go-to first, but I think it really depends on everyone's schedules and, what they feel is reasonable and appropriate. Yeah. But it is really important, I think, that when you do, it is really important to be available when you need to be available, right? So yeah.
Director Martman.
I guess what I heard in that question is that probably he has an answer in a creative idea. So I would look to explore that, a creative idea with you around communication. I think if you wait till the meeting of the board day, that's too long. That's the wrong time to try to be communicating. To me, it's around doing that on a regular basis, and I see doing it weekly. I've done this in the past very successfully, and it, again, like Director Nicholson, it really is tailored to the person that you're talking to. I will make the time, fit your schedule. So that's how I see it. Other times that's been successful as well is you just say, hey, this is coffee afternoon. Where do you want to meet with people? And you do that. So not that creative, but I'll be interested in your thoughts later.
Director Stone.
Well, I've done the gamut of it over my 9 years in local government. I've done weekly newsletter updates to my council in the past. And frankly, I didn't find it being an effective use of time. I've always been available and have an open door. If anyone reaches out to me and feels that they need support or communication or have an issue, I'm there. Of course, we all have busy schedules, and I would ask myself if I were always immediately available what I was doing in service to the organization as the chair. You should be busy. You should be occupied. I talk about planning my schedule 2 weeks in advance, and I try and fill my days with productive things that are advancing the roles that we have. However, communication is important. It can be a sidebar communication when you're having a break during a meeting. It can be a set-up coffee date. It can be I need to have a meeting, or a semi-regular. Rob and I talked about it before. Even as mayors in the region, we need to have kind of set up communications because our busy schedules do get in the way, and it's hard to make everyone's busy schedule mesh sometimes when you're trying to work with 15 other people around a table. So I won't make empty promises or over-promise and under-deliver, but I will always make myself available and be as responsive as possible. If there's an urgent issue that necessitates and justifies sort of turfing a schedule out the window, I've always done that. So there are times when a regional district chair will be faced with a crisis and your schedule doesn't matter anymore, and you need to be able to do that, and I've always done that. However, you also need to show a level of organization and respect for all of each other, the busy schedules that we have, and be able to say, hey, well, let's coordinate something for next Tuesday, or having those brief sidebar conversations, text conversations, late night phone calls whenever necessary. I'm up at 5:30 in the morning. I'm up till 10:30 at night. I'm happy to have those conversations at any time of day.
Thank you. Director Toporowski.
Thank you for the question. I'm going to guarantee you there's going to be a bump in the road. We all have different styles, but whoever it is at the end of the day will have a different style of approaching this. I sold Avon for 16 years, so I got to know my customers, and I made index cards. So I'm just going to let you know, you're all going to have an index card with your name on it, and it's when I started campaigning for Cowichan Tribes, and I went to go get some advice from the elders, the advice that I had was speak to the people first, and then find out what their communication styles were. Someone might like to have a phone call and be happy with that. One person, one of the elders that I know that always ribs me all the time, says I have to come to their house if I want them to go somewhere. So I get to know each individual of what your wants and needs are. So again, I will not answer the phone while I'm driving down the highway. So just to let you know that. So, but I will have my phone on and available. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Segal. Director Wilson.
I am going to pass to my learned friend on my left.
Director McGonigal.
Specific question to Director Toporowski. Do you have any skin so soft?
I'm not an Avon rep anymore.
I'm sorry, but it's an excellent bug repellent, just so you know. No, seriously, though, a little levity into the situation is always nice.
I thought you were serious.
No. I do have a question for all the candidates, please. Do you feel the role of the chair is to further your personal agenda? And if not, how do you advocate for your interests?
I'll start with Director Martman.
I like to write the questions down so I actually can refer back to them. So just to make sure I've got it right, what do you think the role of the chair is to progress your own personal issue, and how do you deal with?
I can bring this over to you.
No, you can read it one more time.
Okay, one more time.
Thank you.
Do you feel the role of the chair is to further your personal agenda? If not, how do you advocate your personal interests?
Okay. All right. Whoa, I could peel this one way back. The reason I say that is that when I started an elected official, I really thought as you go through the election, they say, well, what's your opinion on this? What do you think? And then when you come sitting in the chair as a director, they want you to say, not they, the people that elected you go, are you representing us? Are you hearing our voice? Are you reflecting our voice in a way that is honoring what we expected of you? So they didn't expect me to have an opinion. So I really take that to heart. I really think that when you bring your personal opinion to the table, you better have it aligned to the voice of your community, to what the community is saying. So that's my number one thing. So, but it does lead to a very interesting, perhaps conflict when you get to number two of the question, which is when the voice of your community is saying one thing and the role of the chair comes up in sort of opposition of that. And I think that those things aren't a real problem when you look at it carefully, because yes, your job is to still be your representative of your community, but you can do it in a way, and I've seen it done by previous chairs, where you can actually say, you know, my community thinks this. I still have the responsibility to speak for my community. I don't let that go because I become chair of something. I think if you turn to your legislative services, they can probably give you an avenue to say if you really need to step down for a moment, you can step down as chair to speak if it was that serious. But I think when it comes down to it, you do both roles. You do both. And you do it respectfully, and you also do it very transparently. So I would say that that's a very good question, but I'll be interested to hear how the others think about that too.
I'll turn to Director Stone.
Thank you. Well, I think I said it in my opening statement. The reality is the role of chair is the reflection of the will of the board. As a meeting chair, your job is to facilitate good dialogue and good decision-making and efficient meeting and legal framework practices, keeping things on the rails, if you will. As a spokesperson, you're there reflecting the will of the board, not an opinion. We all come to this table with ideas and perspectives, both reflective of our community and sometimes reflective of the challenging role of leadership in having a knowledge base that maybe not is always shared amongst community. And I've reflected a lot on leadership sometimes about having difficult conversations with community that may not always be popular in the short term, but knowing that you're doing the right thing and promoting the right decisions and opportunities and resolutions for your community. That being said, I think I've shown in the years that I've been chair, whether it was of a committee or the board, that my primary objective when sitting in that seat is to be the reflection of the will of the board. I take my direction from the board. I take my strategic pursuits, if you will, and advocacy from the board. And when it conflicts with my personal opinion, frankly, when I'm out and about in the world, that's too bad. I have an opportunity to be able to make my voice heard through the voting process, and I frankly haven't found a particular instance where something was, as sitting in the board seat, or the chair's seat, was enough for me to sort of vacate the seat, if you will, to get super passionate about an issue. I get more inflamed and frustrated around process issues than I do about substance of different positions around the table. If it's a well-run discussion and people are on topic and on task, I'm generally happy to let the decisions be made by the body, and trust that with 16 people around the table, more often than not, we will make what I think is the best decision for everyone in the region and for the communities that we serve.
Director Toporowski.
Well, what more is there to say? No, I didn't have an agenda. Was there an agenda handed out? Just kidding. All joking aside. No, I don't have an agenda. I am appointed here by North Cowichan, and advocating for my own interests. It's just about people getting along. People have known me around the table here. It's about listening to everyone and landing where we need to be at this table. There may be some things that the CAO may bring to my attention, and it's brought here, like Mayor Rob Douglas would bring here as well, and just drop it in here on the table, but it's a board decision. I'm only one vote, so to speak, unless we're counted votes, but that's for another day. But yeah, it's about listening to everyone and coming to an agreement on what the direction of the board wants to go. And sometimes, you win them or you lose them. So that's just the way it is. But again, we can still be friends at the end of the day, and I'm happy with the feeling around the table this time around, and that's where I am. But there's no agenda. There you go.
Director Nicholson.
I think I would answer very similarly to the other directors. I don't have an agenda. I have values. I have issues that are important to Area E, but my only agenda is to do what's best for the region, and I really trust in a good process, and it takes me back to this notion of the more we can get to consensus decisions, the better I think the decisions are, and more in keeping with what the region needs.
Thank you. Turn to Director Justice. Do you have a question?
Thank you, I don't have a question.
I move to Director Deck.
Watershed protection and drinking water sustainability is becoming increasingly important as time goes by, and this question, by the way, is for all four. Currently, many of our watersheds are on private managed forest lands, and the Private Managed Forest Land Act prevents local governments from impeding the activities of their on their land, I say. Would you or how would you advocate for changes in the Private Managed Forest Land Act to allow the CBRD and other local governments to have more control over water?
I'll start with Director Stone.
Oh, this is a good one. Well, we're blessed because we have great advocates around this table, and that work is underway. And frankly, I feel like that we're getting more traction than we ever have. That being said, it's a bit of a monster to tame. I think that not only through Cowichan Watershed Board and working with Cowichan Tribes, the Cook Silas Sustainability work, Director Nicholson is part of that group, which is a really important advocacy role. Mayor Douglas has invited me into meetings, and I raise my hands to the others around this table because we are truly gifted and blessed with some of the best advocates on this issue. I'm a forestry kid. There's others around this table that were raised and their families were brought forward in this valley around forestry, but we also recognize that some of the most terrible impacts of climate change, the impacts of fires and floods, are really exacerbated and magnified through poor land management practices. And that doesn't mean just our community plans and our OCPs, but even more so what happens in every watershed, from the very headwaters of the watershed down to the estuaries that empty into our lakes, our lakes and the ocean. I don't think that I could prescribe a path forward that I can guarantee success on. I will say, though, that I see a provincial government that, at one hand, recognizes the immense value of private managed forest lands to their financial pictures, but also is increasingly open to difficult conversations around private forest land practices. So I think that it's really important that you continue to have this coordinated and effective advocacy through vehicles like the Cowichan Watershed Board in partnership with the municipalities of the region and the First Nations of our region, talking about like the Chemainus watershed planning process is, you know, in the conversations I've been invited into, those talk a lot about private forest land practices. So we have to continue to sort of leverage, you know, that's been brought up, and I think it's a great strategy about coordinated advocacy and having plans and consistent messaging and strength behind those advocacy plans. I think we need to continue to do that work. I couldn't, you know, sort of guarantee an outcome. I think any of us would be foolish to. I think that is quite a monster to tame, but I think that we're really blessed in this group and in this valley with some of the best advocates that you could have, and we'll all be working together to hopefully make those necessary changes in the practices to support all of our healthy watersheds and the ecosystems that are built in and around them. And it goes to emergency management, and it goes to, you know, quality of life and social outcomes. Like it's a deep river, if you will, of opportunity, but we just need to keep up the same work that we've been really starting and getting momentum on in the last couple of years.
Thank you.
Director Toporowski.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Yeah, watersheds. I was on the Cowichan Watershed Board for 8 years, and there's a lot of wonderful work that's been started. And as you heard earlier, you know, that is continuing. 150 years of First Nations saying that there was something wrong with the logging going up on the hills. This was our highway. This was our fishing territory. There's First Nations rights to the river, which I'm hopeful that people are starting to hear that message now. Yeah, so there's all of those things, and that the provincial government is starting to make changes, and with UNDRIP, I'm hoping to see all of these things, all of these puzzles come together to make that picture of where we're going to be headed in our region for local water. The Cowichan Watershed Board was something that was, you know, a good partnership that was formed, and we're seeing and reaping the benefits of that right now. And even though Cowichan River has been the focus, it's starting to go into Cooksaila, the Chemainus watershed. You know, those things are some of the data that's been gathered, like we say about governments, wanting that information. Is there fish in the river? All of these different things. And there is evidence. There's a lot of evidence of that. And just like I said, I'm very hopeful that our direction that we're going in right now will help us in those efforts. And Cowichan Watershed Board is one of those building blocks and structures that have started to go forward. And, you know, we have people here talking about Shawnigan Lake watershed, and that's just as important as anywhere else. So watersheds are important, and once, you know, like we heard about sponge cities. So those are just some of the things that, you know, have to be creative in trying to fix what has gone wrong. The sad thing is that we have forest companies that own Crown land in our region, and just trying to get inroads to speaking about what's happening and trying to change their logging methods has been very hard to penetrate into that, thinking of doing things the old way. But like I said, I'm hopeful. I can't remember, I heard something the other day that, you know, someone had been talking to Western Forest Products, but don't quote me in the paper. I can't remember where it was, but, you know, they have that, open the door for the conversation of looking at those methods. And when Cowichan Watershed Board did a tour of our municipal forest and how we look at the tributaries and streams, and how we've gone farther into protecting those streams and waterways than the neighboring forest companies. So if we can all get on the same page with that, that would be wonderful, so. And I'm happy that I can actually drink this water and it doesn't smell like chlorine. Thank you for the question.
Director Nicholson.
Just to add to what's been said, I think the time to make a difference on this one is now, and we really need to go beyond the region. So what struck me at UBCM, I was at a panel, I went to observe a panel discussion that had the Minister of Forests, Minister Ralston, and I got up and asked a question specifically about this private managed forest land and when they were gonna redo the regulations because they weren't working for us. And then the person right after me from Up Island came and did that. And I know Karen had done the same thing. So everyone's on the east side of Vancouver Island is in this private managed forest land strip is feeling the same thing we are. And the Coxsila is really, they're really paying attention to us because of the Coxsila Water Sustainability Planning process. And forestry is a big deal in that process. So I think the time is right to get to across, a regional district, get all the regional districts together on this that have an interest and start to lay out a more planned approach to this advocacy, because we have made great strides. We just need to really push it home now in the next couple of years.
Director Martman.
Sometimes I feel like I'm right out of my depth. What the heck am I talking about private forest managed lands? And yet I have a thought on it, so go figure. Three levels. The first level is where we're at. Where are we, and how do we initiate change at this level? And I think we embrace that by looking what our community does. And so we did some of that today with the Cowichan Watershed Society, and also with the provincial funding that we provide. Oh, sorry. So I think there are decisions we can make to help support that, and what about the Shawnigan Basin Society? Those are our stewards of the land on a local basis, and so how do we encourage them? Because they are connected in. I mean, when you talk about private forest managed lands, this is about water. Like, let's not mess around. This is about water, and so everything connected to water, which is, I can't imagine not everything, because aren't we 80% water or something like that? So, yeah, so it's pretty personal when you come down to it. So that's local, but you move it up to the provincial level and you hear advocacy and what can you do there. I think that all the statements are bang on. You have to get a voice out there and use every avenue you can. But ultimately, decisions are around dollars for these companies. And how do you get them to shift that thinking? Because unless you come down and do some pretty catastrophic legislation, they're going to continue their ways until you show them a better way. And so sometimes you see that happening when Mosaics comes to us and says, "Oh, we're going to put this for carbon storage. We're going to do this, and we're going to save. We're not going to cut those trees. Well, maybe not for 30 years, anyways. But those are ideas that I think would we get behind if private forest managed lands were able or committed to doing that, and what would it take for us to do it? I think there's even another level, and this is kind of pie in the sky level. Jesse, is that the word you use? Pie in the sky? And that's at the federal level. And it's what other countries have done around the world. And it's about giving rights to natural assets. So should a river have a right, legally in court, to say, you are doing me harm? And so New Zealand's done this. I think there's a few other jurisdictions. I would say that's something that we also need to keep in mind and say, yeah, it's got value. Thank you.
Thank you. We're running over, I think. So again, and I really want to allow everybody to have questions. And so really succinct, short. I ask that the nominees also give very succinct answers. And so I'm going to move to Director Staples. Do you have a question for one or all of the candidates?
My question would be for all of the candidates, and it would be, we talked a lot at the beginning of last year about the culture of the organization and the board, and I'd like to know from all of you how you see building, building and strengthening on the work that has already been done to change the culture around this table and in this organization.
Straight to the point and succinct. We'll start with Director Toporowski.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Well, I did have a conversation with Aaron, and he said that he would be glad to help whoever that the board chair would become and transferring information. And I just want to build on the strength of where we're headed. And again, with Aaron being the chair and the direction that's changed, as we have seen the culture change around this table from the last term. And the staff, I'm going to say they're happier. And that's thanks to Danielle and Aaron and their good work over the past year. And we'll continue to grow on that. And yeah, so that's where it is. I'm going to keep it short and sweet, but yes.
Director Nicholson.
I think it's important that people enjoy coming and have fun. And I think you get there by leading by example, being welcoming, respectful, service-oriented, and then involving people. As I spoke in my speech quite a lot, but this is about people being involved in things and getting feedback. So, yeah, I think we've got something to build on now, which is great.
Director Martman.
Thank you. I think you start with knowing what your purpose is, both as a board member and as a organization. And as I see it, we're here to serve the public. That is our role, and that's our purpose. And so when you work towards that, you have to connect the board to the organization, to the individual and the community. And how I see this playing out, and I think it's played out over the last year, it's about saying, how do you have a healthy board? How do you have people working together, feeling like this is the place to come to share ideas, make decisions that will support the organization in a way the organization can say, we are supported to do the role that you have, that we all have the same vision of customer service. And, sometimes it's linking it back and saying, how do you know if you've done a good job? So you sit here and go like, well, what did I do a good job today? And what's your test that you put yourself up against every day? And so, but that goes back to the organization too, and to discover that within yourself as an employee or as a board member to say, yeah, I go home and yeah, I did my mom proud today. That's sort of my mom standard. And, did I embarrass her with anything I said? Maybe I am now. But I think it's about having that board supporting an organization in a way the organization goes, you know what? We feel supported. It's a healthy place. It's a safe place to come. And then that in turn reflects the customer service that you get. So I think it's all linked together. Thank you.
Director Stone.
More of the same. Thank you. No, in all seriousness, I was trying to be concise, and I know we're already like over 10 minutes over. I think, though, it is a lot of more of the same. I talk about we need to build a culture of excellence, right? It's a lot more fun to come to work when you're pursuing excellence, not staving off failure. I think we've developed good momentum. We need to keep up with the work, the good work that's going on. Staff deserve a huge amount of credit for the work, and our CAO and the whole senior staff team. I feel different when I come into this building, whether it's to work with all of you or to work with the staff in this building. I think we all recognize that we have a lot to offer to each other other and to the organization and to the communities and the greater community that we serve. And we need to keep doing more of that. To prescribe what that looks like doesn't really do the subject justice. You respond and adapt to the situations that you come across in pursuit of excellence, and you continue to have that attitude of wanting to do more and do better.
Thank you all. Director Douglas. Director Acton. Thank you all. We're not going to go back. Unfortunately,
Patrick.
we don't have time to go around again. We're going to move into voting. I want to clarify with respect to if 3 or more candidates run in the election and no candidate received a majority of votes, the name of the candidate receiving the lowest number of votes will be removed from the election. If there are candidates tied for the lowest number of votes, I will place the candidates' names in a container, and the name I pick out will be included in the next round. I said that previously that person would be eliminated from voting. My error, that person will actually go to the next round of voting. So with that, I'm just going to go to our staff. What I'm going to do is we will distribute a ballot as best you can. This is a secret ballot. And please put up your hand if you need a pen. Please note that you are to make one X for one candidate for chair of the CVRD and the CVR HD. Thank you. Please fold, once you've marked your ballot, please fold your ballot in half. If you fold it more than just half, that's fine as well. Have we got all of the ballots? If you want to take a 5-minute recess, staff and I are going to go into committee room number 2, and we'll tabulate the votes. We seem to be missing 4 directors. I'd ask just for 5 minutes. I know that we've got a long afternoon still ahead of us.
Hit the bell.
Thank you, everybody, for your patience. I know that our video is still recording, and so we didn't stop and we didn't buffer. In the first round, by majority vote, Director Stone has been elected chair. Can I have a motion to destroy the ballots? Thank you. Seconded. All those in favor? No opposed. Carried. Thank you. We'll move on to the election of vice chair. I turn to the table, and I am looking for nominations for vice chair of the Cowichan Valley Regional District and the Cowichan Valley Regional Hospital District. Director Wilson.
Thank you. I'd like to nominate Director Martman.
Director Martman, do you accept the nomination?
With thanks to my nominator, I accept, but note that going first often means you have to answer questions first, so.
One the first time. Was that a yes?
Yes.
Thank you. Director McClinton.
I would like to nominate my esteemed colleague, Director Segal.
Director Segal, do you accept the nomination?
Thank you, I accept.
Any further nominations from the board? I have nominated Director Martman and nominated Director Segal. Director Abbott?
I'd like to nominate Director Nicholson.
Director Nicholson?
No, I decline, thank you.
I have Director Martman and Director Segal nominated, and those nominations were accepted by those directors. Any further? I'd ask then that we turn to the nominated directors, that they provide some opening remarks if they so choose to address the entire board. Director Martman.
Excuse me, I thought that was reverse order this time. Anyways, you know, how do you even start something? I did say something earlier. I'd just like to maybe say something about the person running against me. I think she's bright. I think she's ready. I think she's really, really keen. I'll vote for me, but I just want to let her know, like, yeah. So anyways, that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Director Segal.
Thanks. I was going to say you should probably vote for Director Martman because he's more experienced than me. And I have no idea how to run a meeting and don't really like Robert's rules, so obviously I have a lot to learn. But I love what I refer to this job as a really complex jigsaw puzzle. And I love puzzles, and I think that I love them because it also gives me an excuse to ask for help all the time. I have a good collection of mentors, as well as everyone here around the table. And that I'll bring, you know, a different, fresh, naive, but maybe that's good, perspective, voice from the South, voice from electoral areas. And I think you all know me, and you know how I operate now after being here for a year together. Relationships are my highest priority. So either way, I look forward to continuing.
Thanks.
Thank you. As before, I'm going to start on my left. And I really press upon you, we have a very busy, and I really want to hear, and those listening in really would like to hear the questions and hear the responses of the two candidates, but please be succinct, and when you answer, please be succinct and short as well. Everybody would appreciate that. Thank you very much.
I'll pass.
I have a question, and mostly I'm asking this because we got a good sense from Director Martman, running from the chair, where he stands on a few things. If you could, Director Segal, could you, this is a bit of a loaded question and on purpose, just how do you think your fellow, and probably specifically electoral service areas, but in general, how do you think your fellow directors would describe you?
I think that they would describe me as a good listener, as someone who is compassionate, as someone who can hold both sides and make a good decision from there.
Thank you. Director Abbott. Director Wilson. Director McGonigal.
To both of you, if either one of you is elected, will you stop saying you're newly elected?
Oh, Tim, I love it.
I don't think anybody's biting.
As you wish.
I will play the new card as long as possible.
Now it's new vice chair.
Director Toporowski, do you have a question? Director Stone.
I'll pass.
Director Justice. Director Deck. Director Staples.
I would
Oh,
just
I'm sorry. Nope, I've forgotten Director Nicholson. Director Staples.
I would just like to ask Director Segal, since you haven't had the opportunity to speak as much as Director Martman, if there's anything that you would like to say in case no one asks you a question that sort of, gives you an opportunity to speak about any of the issues that or questions that were asked of the chairs earlier.
I guess the one thing that I really would look forward to doing is to work on the succession planning that was mentioned by all the chairs and creating a culture where all the directors can learn more about holding the responsibilities of chairs and vice chairs throughout committees and the board, so that we don't have kind of all of our eggs in one amazing basket. Director Stone.
Director Douglas. Director Acton. All right. I'm just going to confer with the staff, and we have some ballots for you, and we're going to commence the secret ballot in a moment. Talk among yourselves. You certainly can.
So my question would be for both of the candidates. So in this first year of this term, to give you a equal sort of frame of reference, what has been your most surprising or challenging learning experience in this last 12 months? What's been a big test, big challenge, big learning curve for you? And that's to both candidates.
I was going to go to Director Segal unless you wanted to play rock, paper, scissors on responding. No. Director Segal.
I can think of two, I guess. One, but that happened enclosed and involved a lot of extra research and great support from staff and reading some ombudsperson's reports and really understanding governance. So I can't give a lot of details around that one, but that was, maybe some of you know what that is. But also, around the garbage scenario. That's been like such a steep learning curve to understand my community and how to make their voice heard here and stay in relation with the board where we kind of ended up on sides. And also, like, as we've gone through and into later specifics around how the three-stream is going to roll out, finding that as I gather all the information, like I said, I'm good at finding all the sides, and I can get stuck on like wanting both. But I know that I have to end up making a decision. And I actually changed my mind on one of those decisions between committee and board, and had a lot of great guidance from the directors around this table that helped me in that decision-making process. So that was, yeah, those are my experiences.
You know, I think when I look back at the last year, I would like to pull it back a little bit further and just say, you know, to give us some equivalency to what Director Segal was saying, one of the more difficult things I find is that you can have the best intention, the best idea, your community wants it, everything's aligned, and you even can get the board to say, yeah, we want to do this, but you have to get staff to connect to it too, because staff they're the ones that make it happen. And so, you know, it's about understanding that you have to, as a director, have that ability to connect in with the staff through the general managers and use that connection to really leverage the things you want to get done in your own little area. Yeah, you can have the money, you can have the will of the board, but you got to get the staff to be there too. So yeah, it's pretty exciting. I've got one project going on right now, and you know, just come on, staff. You know, are you excited? I am really excited about this, and yeah, I hope they are too.
I'll continue around the table. We do have time. Any other further questions? No other further questions for the two nominees? Thank you. We have ballots, and we'll distribute those. Did everybody place their ballot in the bag? We'll just take a couple of minutes, and we'll tally the votes. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. By majority, oh. That's the buffering. Thank you. Welcome back. By majority vote, Director Segal has been elected Vice Chair. Congratulations. Congratulations to all the candidates to the Chair and the Vice Chair. It's not an easy thing to put your name forward, and we all appreciate that. Before I let Director Stone assume the Chair, we should take a 10-minute break. Only 10 minutes, folks. There you have an extremely long a motion to destroy the ballots, please. Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
All right, if we can, still got a lot of business to do this afternoon and this evening. If we're, yeah, well, we still have 2 closed sessions to go back to, and a lot of work in front of us in the open session today. As I assume the chair for another year, I just want to say thank you to everyone again for the past year, and thank you in advance for the year that's in front of us. I know that we're facing difficult challenges in the region, both on a macro and a micro scale, whether it's across the region, across the province, and across our country, or in the communities, the villages, the rural areas that we all serve. And I hope to be able to be there to support you in that work while also lifting up your leadership in community. Congratulations to Director Segal on being elected Vice Chair, and I really look forward to working with you as well as we try and move forward in a better way together. As we do that, I think that it's incumbent on all of us to find a focus, and we hope to do that through the strategic plan. Hopefully we can have that recognized, adopted, and be able to provide focus to not only us around the board table and our decision making, but also to our staff as the work plans are developed over the coming year and for the years ahead. So I think those are important objectives, and that we'll continue to work together and collaborate on what is hopefully a pursuit of excellence that benefits everyone in our region and lifts up the values that I know that we share. With that, we will get underway and move to the approval of the agenda, and then I do have a couple of things to say under the report of the chairperson. Mr. Robbins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just some changes for consideration as you approve, motion to approve the agenda. Staff are asking that SR3, B2, and B3 be referred to the November 22nd board.
Thank you. I'll give the moment for the directors if they wish to look those over. Mr. Robbins, can you repeat them?
SR3, that's staff report 3, B2 bylaw 2, B3 bylaw 3. SR3, B2, B3. And under the O?
Yep. The yellow bingo. Congratulations, Director McGonagle. You won bingo this afternoon.
And the only other consideration, but it's not a change, under staff report 2, SR2, we'll ask that you actually give a motion for the readings there versus waiting for it to show up at BEA 15, and that's for electoral area directors. I'll bring that up, Mr. Chair, when you hit that on your agenda.
Thank you.
An
So-
FYI.
With those changes to the agenda, moved by Director Morrison, seconded by Director Estache. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Mr. Robbins.
Recommendation that the minutes of the regular board meeting of October 11, 2023 be adopted.
If there are no errors or omissions, a motion to adopt the minutes moved by Director Douglas, seconded by Director Staples. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries.
No business arising. We move to item number 6, public input period. I'll first turn to, there's no one online. Is there anybody in the gallery that's going to want to participate in public input period? Doesn't look so, Mr. Chair. No delegations. You were going to make a couple of comments at the report of the chairperson under agenda item 8.
Thank you. It was mentioned earlier, and thank you to Ms. Kaufman. I do want to recognize that today is National Indigenous Veterans Day. Throughout our country's history, Indigenous servicemen and women have supported our country all the way from World War I, World War II, the Korean War in particular, but also in peacekeeping missions and been an important integral part of our role of peacekeeper and in the great wars that we've faced over time. And I know that we all raise our hands in gratitude in honoring those veterans. And this is also a last meeting before Remembrance Day this Saturday. I know that many of us will be attending important commemorative services, and Remembrance Day is of great importance across our entire country, but also in the communities that we all serve. I've had the honor and privilege to attend a number of different Remembrance Day ceremonies over the years. And each one of them brings a special stories of our veteran sacrifice and support of our communities in their own ways. I know I'm looking forward to the event this year in Ladysmith, and I know that we all look forward to honoring our veterans, both those who we've lost and especially those that have returned with many of the challenges that we're recognizing more around mental health and PTSD, and also their families who also suffer great loss and sacrifice in support of protecting our country and the freedoms that we all enjoy. So with that gratitude, I'd like to just move on in our agenda. Thank you, Mr. Robbins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Moving to Section 9 of the agenda, correspondence. C1 is correspondence from the town of Ladysmith with regards to CVRD regional planning. This is for your information. C2 is correspondence from the town of Ladysmith seeking a letter of support for the REDIP grant application. It's for direction.
Director Acton.
Yeah, I would like to move that, give the town of Ladysmith their request for the letter of support.
That's been seconded by Director Segal. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Mr. Robbins.
C3 is a piece of correspondence from Rowing Canada, seeking a letter of support for Rowing Canada's applications to the REDIP for a national training center. We're seeking direction.
Director Douglas.
Yeah, I'll move that we provide the support letter.
Thank you. Seconded by Director Wilson. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. I would suggest that if you're able to get an opportunity to tour that facility, we were invited out there recently to tour the improvements they've made out there. It's world class. And I just reflect back on North Cowichan's efforts and the Cowichan Regional District's efforts to especially North Cowichan, but to get that training facility here, it truly is going to be world-class and is great for the region. Call the question then. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Mr. Robbins.
That brings you to committee commission reports. CR1 is the report and recommendations of the Electoral Area Services Committee meeting of October 18, 2023. If Director Nicholson wants to speak to it.
Director Nicholson.
Thank you. Your Electoral Area Services Committee reports and recommends as follows. 2 grants and aid. We probably can do this as a block if people don't have anything to pull.
Director Acton.
Yeah, I have a question on R5, so maybe we could pull that one.
Okay.
Which R5?
That's at the bottom, so.
The bottom R5 or the second to bottom R5?
That'll be for electoral area.
Is it just my agenda that has 2 R5s?
First. So you're doing this first. That's the second, that's the next block.
Oh, next block, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyone to pull from,
So in this block, there's C1, C2, R8, R11, and R12, and R12.
oh, sorry, right, sorry, my bad. So, Director, sorry, you have I'm Director Morrison, I think, too.
Yeah,
Director Morrison,
If we could,
masquerading as Director Stone.
if we could pull R12, just would like some information. I want to pose a question to staff on that.
The first R12 or the second R12?
Second R12.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So I move C1, C2, R8, R11, and R12, the first one.
Seconded by Director Segal. We're off to a hot start today. What a great term this looks to be. Any discussion on those? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. So to discuss on, was it R12, the second one? Director Morrison.
I'd be comfortable if it was moved. I just want to pose the question to staff as to when we might be expecting this to come back to electoral area services. I think we've had some discussion and we want to see this proceed as quickly as we can. We will have more discussion, but do we know when we can expect the fiscal details?
Through the chair to Director Morrison, we're, just to be clear, I'm in the right place. We're on R12 about the growing community funds, is that right? Yeah, so our intention is to come back at the next EASC. So,
Great, thank you.
So I move the second R12.
Okay, thank you. Seconded by Director Morrison. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? None opposed, motion carries.
And then electoral area directors only vote on the following. Anyone need anything pulled? Director Atkin?
Which R5, the second one or the first one?
The second one. We don't like the seconds today. Okay, so I move R2, R3, R4, and the first R5.
Okay, that's been moved, seconded by Director Segal. Any discussion on those? Electoral area directors only, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Moving to discussion on the second R5. Director Acton.
Yeah, thank you. I should have done this earlier, but we've had such an exciting day. I don't understand R5, and I'm wondering if, once it's explained, is it also, because I was absent during this meeting, is it a motion that came about by the brilliance of the committee? In a nice way?
Either through to staff or maybe Ms. Trolf?
Through you, Chair Stone, to Director Acton. Yes, the resolution was a result of the brilliance of the committee. And so the intent of the resolution was to request that staff provide comparative information on our building permit fees in relation to other jurisdictions, and we report back. It's one of the items that we provide for the public at the front counter, and so there's a proposed charge for that benefit, and so we would provide information on the cost to prepare that package.
Thank you. So that's been moved. Director Nicholson?
I move it.
Okay, seconded by Director McClinton. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
CRT is the report and recommendations of the Electoral Area Services Committee meeting of November 1st, 2023. The first three recommendations are for all of the board.
Director Nicholson.
Your Electoral Area Services Committee recommends 3 grant and aids, C1 through C3.
That's been moved by Director Nicholson, seconded by Director Wilson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
And does anyone have any of the electoral area directors only vote on the following R1 through R4? Anyone need anything pulled? No?
Seeing none.
I move those then, please.
Seconded by Director Segal. Any discussion? Seeing none, electoral area directors only, all in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
CR3, Mr. Chair, is the report and recommendations of the Committee of the Whole of earlier this afternoon on November 8th, 2023. This is for all directors.
Director Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We decided we were going to read these out because they came from this morning, or are we going to decide that we're not going to read them out because they came from this morning?
We don't need to read them out.
Okay,
We just
I
made,
will
we just,
move,
I think everyone here was here this morning. Yeah, if not, check the video.
Well, Director Staples was absent, but.
She was online.
R1, I move R1, R3, R4, R5, R6, and R10.
Seconded by Director Wilson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
Moving through your agenda, we're not aware of any direct reports under agenda item number 12. Moving to section 13, staff reports. The first one, SR1, is a report from the General Manager, Land Use Services, with regards to application number 29-D-16DP, Couch and Bay Campground, located on Loch Manetz Road. For information.
Thank you, Mr. Robbins. That's there for information. Seeing no hands, we will move on. Mr. Robbins.
SR2 is a report from Land Use Services with regards to bylaw number 4485, zoning bylaw for electoral areas.
So you'll see on your agenda the notation there that this has been brought back for reconsideration based on, I think this, Mr. Robbins may be able to explain it better than I, but clerical corrections, is that the best way to put it?
There are some clerical and administrative changes. In particular, you can see under recommendation 2 with regards to the substitution of a document that makes up a part of that bylaw. It's being brought back by the chair. That's the chair's privilege under the Local Government Act to bring it back. We have passed the time with which another director might bring it back. The chair's prerogative is to bring something back for reconsideration within 30 days after staff review. And I suggest that you do it individually, please.
So we can just start with 1 through 4, one at a time. So I'd look to the electoral area directors for a mover and a seconder on number 1. Moved by Director Martman, seconded by Director Deck. Any discussion on number 1? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. On to number 2. Moved by Director Segal, seconded by Director Abbott. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. On to number 3. Moved by Director Wilson, seconded by Director Deck. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor and opposed, none opposed, motion carries. Moving on to item 4. Moved by Director Segal, seconded by Director Acton. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, any opposed, none opposed, motion carries. Back to you, Mr. Robbins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At the beginning of the agenda, you moved to refer SR3 to November 22nd. So we're going to move to SR4, which is a verbal report from Legislative Services with regards to Accessibility Advisory Committee terms of references.
So you'll see the recommendation there.
And this comes out of committee work where there was discussion with regards to the terms of reference and the practicality of having a chair and vice chair from the board versus those that you would appoint to this committee. And the practicality around it, those that have applied and that you will subsequently appoint may not have the experience, and as such, you may want to change the terms of reference to provide for a chair and vice chair to be appointed by this board. Should the competency and the ability of the committee evolve over time, you can certainly amend these terms of reference if you decide that you would like to have a chair or vice chair elected from those that you appoint, other than those that sit on this table. Does that sort of make sense?
Thank you. So you see the recommendation before you. Is that a question or to move it? Question, Director Segal.
So, yeah, I still am just looking for more clarity. Because on first blush, that just kind of seems problematic to me. I wonder if there are other committees that have this same kind of wording. I'm just thinking of our APCs and CPACs that could be all new members each election cycle, and they're allowed to select their own chair and vice chair. So just what's the difference here?
Mr. Robbins.
There is no difference.
So is
You
this
make a valid point.
Thank you. Director McGonigal.
Thank you very much. And my thinking along this line was, as this was mandated by the province, moving forward to allocate an accessibility committee within each municipality and regional district, that perhaps the original committee would be appointed elected officials, and then moving forward with experience to move to those who are sitting within that committee if they so desire to take on that role. That was my thinking as it was mandated by a senior level of government, that it would reside within this body to begin with. That was my thought process.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Director Morrison.
I rue what I'm about to say, because I don't like to modify stuff on the fly, but I'm just wondering if there's any merit in the recommendation being that the chair and vice chair at the inaugural, or in the first year of its mandate, be a director of the CVRD board, and then in years 2, 3, and 4, it could be elected from its membership. Just, it makes sense to establish the tone and the nature of the responsibility of the chair, and if there's a skilled individual on the committee that is interested in seeking the position, it's open for consideration in year 2 or year 3 if the committee wanted to.
So, have I missed anyone? Because I have a few thoughts. I'm along the lines of Director Segal, but we have lots of committees, and the committee members chair those meetings, and they're supported by staff. Director Acton.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say, and they have a template, and some have been doing it for years, and some haven't, and there hasn't been any issues, so. And even often the APC is not even supported by staff. So if there's going to be a staff member there, I don't think we need to make it more complicated, and I would support just leaving it.
I would ask staff if there's a compelling reason why this change has been recommended, and if not, I think we'd like to stick with our practice. But that's the pleasure of the board.
No, Mr. Chair, if you want to leave the terms of reference, which you've already adopted as is, there's no action needed on SR4.
The only other thing I noted was that the term Accessibility Advisory Committee was to remove Accessibility Committee. Did we need the word advisory in somewhere in the terms of reference? But I'll go to Director Martman. Maybe another clerical correction.
Thank you, and, I think it's about getting this off on the right step, and my experience so far with APCs and parks is that there is a bit of a transition in understanding role of a committee within this organization. It isn't intuitive about, even how minutes are done, even though staff people would do that, but also running even running a meeting the way it's expected. So I think there's an expectation there. So I'm okay to change it if proper support is put in training for a chair and a vice chair so that they understand the obligations and the way things are done.
Thank you. So I have no motion on the floor. Well, if we don't make a change, then no motion is necessary. I don't believe.
No, no action is required.
If I don't see him, go ahead, and Director Segal. Go ahead.
I just think this is a great opportunity for the CVRD to be a leader on inclusivity and to just have the exact same terms of reference for a committee that has members that have disabilities.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Not seeing a motion coming forward, so if there's no further discussion, we'll move on to the next item. Mr. Robbins.
SR5 is a report from Legislative Services Division with regard to administrative bylaw changes. This originally was published with a reference to amendment bylaw number 4530, which is actually not necessary. And so there is a single recommendation under SR5. Might sound a little unusual, but to clean up our administrative and by the direction of our lawyers, we present the recommendation that the CVRD bylaw number 4487 Shell Beach Water System Service Area Establishment bylaw 2023 was advanced out of sequence and has no form and effect.
Clear as mud. Is that moved by Director Martman, or you have a question? Moved. Any seconder? Director Deck, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. So I don't know if anybody else is looking at a paper copy, but I also have another section of staff reports, but I think it's the same section. So this agenda is just getting shorter by the moment, which is not a bad thing. So I think we go to public hearings, Mr. Robbins?
That is correct. We had thought there might be a new chair, that we were just testing the chair just to make sure that, see if they noticed. Thank you. Thank you for your indulgence. Nothing under public hearings, which moves you to section 15 bylaws. B1, which is CVRD bylaw number 4516, Burnham Water System Service Amendment, which boundary extension bylaw number 2023. The recommendation that bylaw be adopted.
I'm looking for a mover. Moved by Director Wilson, seconded by Director Segal. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
B2 and B3 have been referred to November 22nd, which brings you to B4, which came from Committee of the Whole today. CVRD bylaw number 4526, solid waste fees regulations amendment bylaw number 2023. The first recommendation is to give that bylaw first, second, and third readings.
Moved by Director McClinton, seconded by Director Staples. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion
The
carries.
second recommendation come from Committee of the Whole is that CVRD bylaw number 4526, solid waste fees and regulations amendment bylaw number 2023 be adopted.
Moved by Director Abbott, seconded by Director Deck. Any discussion? Seeing none. Oh, Director Wilson. Oh, yeah.
Quick question on that.
Director Martin?
So is that B5, is it? Sorry,
B-
what are you reading?
B4.
B4,
Oh, second part.
Yeah.
second part, sorry.
Just adoption. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. So I believe, Mr. Robbins, that you were recommending we could move BAA 1 through 10 as a block?
That is correct.
Because those are the more administrative corrections?
Correct. This has to do with respect to requisition limit increases. When the bylaws were first presented to the electoral area directors, we inadvertently left out requisition limit opportunities. The ministry and the inspector of municipalities found this when we sent them off to them for their review, and these are now updated with all of the available means to requisition and to pay for the services under BEA 1 to BEA 10.
Thank you. That block has been moved by Director Morrison. Do we have a seconder? Director Abbott, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That was for electoral area directors only, just testing the muni directors. Nice work, munis. None opposed, motion carries. That takes us to BEA 11, Mr. Robbins.
This is another administrative update for you. CVRD bylaw number 4506, Shell Beach Water System Service Establishment bylaw number 2023. The first recommendation is that third reading of said bylaw be rescinded.
Moved by Director Martman, seconded by Director Morrison. Man, I'm stumbling. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor and opposed. These are all for electoral area directors, so, Mr. Robbins.
BEA 12, CVRD bylaw number 4509, Fireworks Regulation Service Establishment bylaw 2023. The first
No, we had to do second part of that.
I'm sorry.
Which
Second
was
part is
third reading as amended.
third reading as amended for
On
bylaw
4506.
4506.
Moved by Director Martman, seconded by Director Segal. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. Really keep me on my toes today, Mr. Robbins.
BEA 12, CVRD bylaw number 4509, Fireworks Regulation Service Establishment bylaw 2023. First recommendation is that third reading of said bylaw be rescinded.
Moved by Director Abbott, seconded by Director Segal. All those in favor and opposed? None opposed? Motion carries.
Second part of the recommendation is that bylaw be granted third reading as amended.
Moved by Director Segal, seconded by Director Deck. All those in favor and opposed? None opposed? Motion carries.
And moving to BEA 13, CVRD bylaw number 4521, Shawnigan Beach Estate Sewer Service Amendment, Method of Cost Recovery bylaw 2023. Two parts to the recommendation. The first, that third reading of said bylaw be rescinded.
Moved by Director Acton, Director Sierra, seconded by Director Abbott. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. I'm losing my voice over here.
And then the second part of that is that CVRD bylaw number 4521, Shawnigan Beach Estate Sewer System Service Amendment Method of Cost Recovery bylaw 2023 be granted third reading as amended.
Moved by Director Abbott, seconded by Director Segal. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed? Motion carries.
BEA 14 has been crossed out. That particular bylaw is not necessary, as the original bylaw for Cobble Hill Village Sewer Service was indeed valid, and we didn't need any amendments to there too. BEA 15 you dispensed with earlier under the staff report. Moving to BEA 16, that's CVRD bylaw number 4494, electoral areas works and services bylaw amendment, community water system definition 2023. The recommendation is that bylaw be granted third reading.
Moved by Director Nicholson, seconded by Director Deck. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries.
BEA 17, CVRD bylaw number 4495, Area H North Oyster Diamond zoning amendment bylaw, community water system definition 2023. The recommendation is said bylaw be granted third reading.
Moved by Director Martman, seconded by Director Segal. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Wow, that was great.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and we appreciate the indulgence of the Board of Directors as we made those administrative changes.
I like how you tricked me with that extra section of staff reports. I thought we were going to be here till midnight.
I just read them fast.
All right, so that takes us, I believe, Mr. Robbins, to question period.
We're going to move to question period. Is there anybody in the public gallery that wish to participate in question period?
You guys are looks as tired as we are.
There is nobody.
You're the real
online.
soldiers. If you didn't have a question, you stuck it out with us for the long run. Thank you, Mr. Robbins. So we have a motion to go into closed session.
Closed session, 3 items pursuant to Community Charter, Section 91A with regard to appointments, Section 92B, information held in confidence.
Thank you.
And,
So-
oh, sorry, 4, I needed to turn my page.
Right.
Section 91A, additional appointments, and a final item on that agenda, again, Section 91A for appointments.
Thank you. So moved by Director Istash, seconded by Director Toporowski. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed? We are closed. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you for everyone's determination.
It doesn't appear that you're all here, and I'm not sure that any staff might be joining us
So we can just
remotely.
log out?
So you could log out? I think we're good.
Who's?
Uh,
Oh, Todd?
So what we could do is we can,
I don't,
okay. There's no need to log in.
yeah, just shut it down. He's away, like.
I kicked you out.
So, directors, just real quick, or staff, are we going back into committee of the whole?
I think that the best that you go into committee of the whole in case you want to make, because there is rise and report.
You want to just chair it from your seat, Ian? Okay.
And that way you can make the recommendations in the rise and report.
Let's just take 5 minutes. My back is shot. 10? Okay, but we got to be really efficient in the meeting.